I think the movie starts in a way where it sets up something that it can't fully deliver on. And there's a lot of other things that cascade down from his script, his direction, that ultimately make the thing completely go off the rails. On this week's Movie HighLow, we're talking hot dogs, riding lawnmowers, and a completely superfluous bottle of cough syrup. Be scientific, douchebag. This is M. Night Shyamalan's The Happening. Welcome back to another episode of Movie HighLow, a podcast discussing the best and worst that cinema has to offer. This is Dom.
And this is Dee.
And how are you feeling about tonight's movie?
I think it's a ridiculous film.
I like to think that with time, you can come back to something and give it a clean reevaluation, reinterpretation. I feel like there's a lot of movies out there that maybe didn't get a fair shake the first time around. And maybe with just a little bit of distance, you can come back to it. Certain movies that were not well loved were reclaimed much later on. And I was kind of hoping that would be the case with this movie.
No, I think that upon second viewing, it's still just as shitty, if not shittier.
This week's movie is The Happening, directed by M. Night Shyamalan, released on June 13th, 2008. This is a low episode, says who. The Brain Trust at IMDb currently rated at a 5.0. The consensus at Rotten Tomatoes has it scored at 17%. The experts at Letterboxd give it an overall 2.1 out of 5. It was nominated for 4 Razzies in the form of Worst Picture, Worst Actor, Worst Director, and Worst Screenplay. No. So for anyone who has not seen the film, Dee, can you read a quick synopsis of the movie?
Mild-mannered science teacher Elliot Moore finds himself caught in the middle of a mysterious mass panic spreading across the Northeast, where people are suddenly and gruesomely taking their own lives for no apparent reason. As society begins to collapse, the prevailing theory becomes that nature itself may be striking back against humanity in the form of airborne neurotoxins released by plants. Elliot, his wife Alma, and a handful of other deeply confused people do their very best to outrun the threat by moving from one open outdoor space to another, while desperately trying to preserve their relationships, their sanity, and in one case, their hot dogs. Can mankind survive an attack from the natural world? Or are we all going to get taken out by stiff breeze and some ferns?
This movie obviously has a notorious history of just being one of the, not just worst movies, but one of the most bizarre movies.
Maybe if the acting was better, even the extras were terrible. I don't even think that Zooey Deschanel per se is a bad actress per se. Mark Wahlberg, no offense, kind of is shitty at everything he's in. He kind of just does Mark Wahlberg in every movie. That's why it's so hysterical that he plays a science teacher. I'm like, yeah, like, I'm supposed to find this believable. I don't. Exactly. Be scientific, douchebag, or whatever he said. Like, yeah, because that's spoken like a true scientific man. Like, it's not. It's spoken like a fucking bumblehead from Boston. It's not believable. Every single performance I can think of was just terrible.
The first low of the movie really comes down to Shyamalan and his script and his directing in this movie. It's worth stating a couple of things. First of all, I think he is a talented director. I actually think he is a very talented...
Right, and I'm not saying he's not, but this particular movie,
well, and
The Sixth Sense is one of the greatest.
The thing that's strange about this is when this happens in his career, right? So he comes out obviously with The Sixth Sense, and it's this enormous hit and cultural phenomenon. You and I actually rewatched it recently, and it was really interesting to me to realize how little horror was actually in the movie. It almost feels more like a family drama that included
the few scenes with the ghosts, though.
Yeah.
Because they almost show up quietly. It's not like a bunch of boo scares. Like it's a horror movie, which makes it creepier. Because one would imagine if you were to encounter a ghost in real life, that if it was just quiet and it just was there, like that would be almost even scarier than it making a noise.
Then he comes out with Unbreakable, which is also a pretty big hit. In reflection, a lot of people return to that movie and see it as a masterpiece. And I've always thought it's his best film that he's ever made. Signs comes out, which I really loved, and that was also a really big hit. So he's batting 1,000 for a while there, and then The Village comes out, and that's kind of the first problem in his career, because again, that movie was successful, but it's really the first time he received some backlash, and really where the memification came out of like, oh, the Shyamalan twist. It was starting to look like he was writing his twist and then reverse engineering the movie to fit the twist. Then the next movie he makes after that is Lady in the Water, which was an enormous bomb and really kind of a self-indulgent movie. Now he's at a point in his career where he really needs to take a big swing. The original version of the script was called The Green Effect, and it was being shopped around Hollywood, and it wasn't making an impact. No one really wanted to buy it. So he went back in, he retooled it, and then eventually sold the script as The Happening. The big marketing point behind this movie was like, it was going to be M. Night Shyamalan's first R-rated movie. It's like, if you thought this guy was scary making PG-13 movies, wait till you see what he does when you take the gloves off.
It's an interesting enough concept, but the goofiness and terrible acting of the movie, for me, like, it makes it Like, it almost makes it funny that these things are happening.
Well, this is where it gets to be a strange kind of film, because I think it's very clear, looking at his previous work before this movie, he genuinely understands how to create frightening imagery. I mean, if you think about The Sixth Sense and you think about the ghost, the little boy ghost, where he's
I
like,
agree.
you want to see where my dad hides his gun, and then he turns around and you see the exit wound in his head.
Right.
Or the scene with Toni Collette where it's the oneer, the handheld camera that's following her. She's in the kitchen with Haley Joel Osment. She walks out briefly to get like laundry and comes back in, and then when she comes back in, all the cabinets are open. The scene in Signs when Joaquin Phoenix is watching the news coverage and they have the footage of the alien. M. Night Shyamalan understands.
And he knows how to create suspense too.
He does, and a sense of dread. That's something that he had a track record. He had proven that already by the time he gets to The Happening. He had already proven that he really understands frightening imagery, creating dread, knowing how to pace a movie. It becomes very, very surprising when we get to this movie that he paints himself into this corner. You're never going to make wind blowing through trees and leaves scary. He's handcuffing himself to the least scary kind of visual imagery you could ever use in a movie. And what that ends up forcing him to do is having to rely completely on the shocking imagery of the suicides in this movie. And he blows it because he uses the best imagery of that at the very beginning of the movie, and it never can kind of recover from it.
If you give away all that stuff in the beginning, and exactly like, it's almost like you brought the finale in the beginning. Like, what are you working towards? There's no big moment that you're like, oh man, that was really fucked up.
There's very few highs I have for this movie, and one of the only highs I would have for this movie is the opening scene. And I think that
it's all the clouds. You loved all those clouds.
Not the clouds. I actually put that was the first thing I wrote in one of my lows, was the friggin' 2 minute, 2.5 minutes of just clouds. Like more clouds than were in Gus Van Sant's entire career was just the opening credits of this movie. But the image of all the construction workers walking off of the top of the building, one guy falls, and it's like, oh my God, he fell. It was an accident. Like, give him some room.
And then a third.
And then he's looking up, and you're just seeing it raining down these people that are just walking off. That is the most frightening and effective image in the entire movie, and he wastes it in the first couple minutes. At that point, the movie kind of promises a movie that it can't deliver on, because there's nothing funny about suicide, right? But somehow this movie manages to make suicide funny, and I think that's unintentional. And
right, I don't think it was his goal. I think he thought that the whole way through it was going to be messing with everybody, but it's like, it just feels, that's what I'm saying, it almost feels funny, and it shouldn't.
Here's R-rated M. Night Shyamalan. We can take the gloves off here. We can show you graphic and gory imagery, and we're going to try and up the ante every time. And then he keeps trying to go to these extremes. The scene where they're watching on the iPhone, the zookeeper feeding himself to the lions.
Yeah.
It's like...
And it's the dad from Sixth Sense that lost his daughter or whatever, too. I think it is paying homage to The Sixth Sense, because he's looking at the screen, much like he's looking at the screen in The Sixth Sense when he's watching the video and realizing that his daughter was being slowly poisoned.
This is a miscalculation, I think. From what I understand from the movie, it's supposed to be that the plants are releasing a neurotoxin that when people are breathing it in, it's turning off whatever their self-preservation instinct is, which apparently, I guess, once you lose your self-preservation instinct, your immediate response immediately is to kill yourself in the most arcane or insane way possible. Does it also shut off your pain sensory when you're watching a guy feed himself to lions and having absolutely no reaction? It's funny. A guy lying down in front of a riding lawnmower to literally just zombify yourself. Because that's the thing. It's not that the plants are releasing a chemical that makes you turn into a zombie or try to murder somebody else. It's literally that you inflict the wound upon yourself.
The fact that we're talking about this makes sense to me, though, that why he actually chose to do it that way, because if you think about it, if you were one to be laying down in front of a lawnmower to kill yourself that way, or any of these other ways, like the girl that put the knitting needle in her neck and all that, like, isn't it actually scarier that they don't respond? There's something scary about the idea of them surrendering themselves to it. Even screaming in pain is almost like some form of resistance to it. The fact that they're so complicit in allowing death to come to them brutally. If you watched a man lay down in front of a lawnmower screaming, ah, oh no, ah, right? Versus just accepting of it.
If a doctor hits you in the leg with that little hammer and your leg kicks up, it's just reflexive. It's just one of those things that you have no control over. So for me, it's more like, yeah, they're surrendering, they're accepting their own death, but are they not feeling pain? Screaming from pain would be just a reflexive move. I also think that just the movie has this very specific message, and it comes in the form of human beings are being bad to the earth. We have become a threat to the earth, and now the earth is trying to send us a warning, essentially. But at the same time, then the movie is also taking the the stance of like, well, we are not really good to each other. All the things that end up happening with the human characters in this movie of like, the whole scene where they're trying to get food for the little girl and we're not good to the earth. We're not good to each other. And there's this heavy-handed moment in the movie where they're at that development where those houses are being staged. They're leaving that location. I think it's right when Wahlberg sees the guy lay down in front of the lawnmower. And then as they're leaving the development, there's this huge sign, big letters, "You deserve this."
Right.
It just feels very
on the nose,
message heavy. Shyamalan has since tried to kind of go back and say that this was meant to be kind of a B movie and meant to be kind of a farce. I always dislike when directors do that because it's like that's
for it to be goofy. Did you though?
It seems like a retroactive way to go back and try to qualify something as like, well, the audience just didn't quite get it. And that, I think, is the worst stance you can take when something goes wrong. And again, I think he was swinging for the fences on this. I think he was trying to do something that was going to be maybe markedly different from anything that he had done before. I think the movie starts in a way where it sets up something that it can't fully deliver on. And there's a lot of other things that cascade down from his script, his direction, that ultimately make the thing completely go off the rails. So I think the logical next place to go here, and you already kind of started to say it, is the very bad miscasting of Mark Wahlberg and I would say Zooey Deschanel.
Yeah, but the difference is I feel like Mark Wahlberg is kind of like the same thing in every movie he's in, and he kind of does him. Like Jennifer Aniston does her in every movie she's in. I can't even pinpoint anything Zooey Deschanel's been in that I'm like, oh, she's so amazing. But I never found her to be a particularly terrible actress either. But in this, maybe it's because she's acting off of him that she's terrible too.
Mm.
Because it's like, are you trying to just shittily act your way through this, both of you? Like, it just felt so, pretend you're the most terrible actor in the world and go. Like, it felt like, was this on purpose to be this shitty? I would never in a million years buy him as anything intellectual, like a science teacher, even if it's high school, middle school, and I don't buy it. Maybe a PE teacher.
It's the false sincerity that he's trying to.
I mean, come on, who's he fooling?
Wahlberg is really well used in specific roles. And again, he's
playing basically himself. Macho, arrogant, egotistical, all that. Overconfident.
Yeah.
All those things that's who he is.
His response to it was like, hey, I know the movie sucked. At least I didn't have to play a cop or a criminal. That's the easiest place for a major studio to put him.
He's that versatile an actor.
Shyamalan's not doing him any favors either with the script and the material that he's given him.
And that's another thing too, like that their whole relationship it's terribly written. So what? She's his wife, and they're sort of hinting at that maybe she's unhappy or been unfaithful, and then you find out that there's a guy she works with that she had tiramisu with, and she's reluctant to tell him, and then he finds out and he's like, what?
What he likes to do is kind of have characters who are in a relationship kind of at some kind of precipice. It's very similar in terms of like what's going on in the relationship with what he's got Bruce Willis and Robin Wright going through in Unbreakable, where it's like they're at a crossroads. Their relationship is starting to fall apart. That has to, dramatically play into the events that are happening in the movie. That relationship is written so much better.
And honestly, Bruce Willis, I mean, I kind of almost consider him almost like a Mark Wahlberg with what his persona is, with who he kind of seems like, kind of macho, kind of overconfident. Like, he fits that bill. But I do think that Bruce Willis understands nuance in a way that Mark Wahlberg does not.
And he can play sensitivity, and he can play depression, and he can play a lot of those things a lot more naturalistically.
Maybe Mark Wahlberg can. He didn't show it in this movie, or, you know what I mean?
Getting back to these two and the miscasting of both of them, it's set up that they have this estranged relationship. At one point, Leguizamo is even saying to him, on your wedding day, I saw her crying, and she's never going to actually jump in and be in it with you. There's this immediate sense of friction between these characters that's set from the onset, so that the entire journey that they're going to go on together, it's going to be like, are they going to make it? Like, forget about, is humanity going to make it? Are these two going to make it? But the problem is they have no chemistry, and the characters are written so thinly that you kind of don't care. So when it gets to the end of the movie and they're like having this sincere conversation when they're doing the thing through the wall, you're like, oh my god,
it falls flat.
Get to the end of this. Who cares?
And I'll tell you exactly why that is, because it's just a testament to how poorly written the script is that instead of showing the turmoil in their relationship, they're using exposition. Oh, thank goodness John Leguizamo was there to say that I remember the wedding day, she was crying, right? Thank goodness he was there for that exposition. Thank goodness she's there to have the exposition of whoever this guy is calling her conveniently, and we just had tiramisu, don't call me again. Like, it's so silly and tacked together that it doesn't pay off later on. Like, there's nothing that earned you giving a shit by the end of the movie about them as a couple.
I think another one of the lows, and I know I already mentioned Shyamalan's script, but I think the dialogue in particular is really stilted in this movie.
Yeah, I agree.
Everything about it feels like it's from another planet. Shyamalan is always kind of written in this stylized kind of dialogue way, which can be effective in certain movies and within a certain context. But I think just because of how strange this movie already is, the performances are not great, but neither is helping the other. The dialogue is not helping the actors, and the actors are not helping the dialogue.
It's like the chicken and the egg question, too. It's like, is the dialogue bad or seem bad because the acting is bad? Or is the acting bad because the dialogue's bad? Like, if it was a different actor, would the dialogue feel better? Would it feel more authentic? Or if the dialogue was different, would their acting somehow improve?
I think like the first line that Zooey Deschanel has, they cut to her and she's watching the events that happened in New York on the news.
Right. When they first show her character, she's at home and she's all like on edge watching.
Yeah, and they're saying like, you know, they think that it might be some kind of chemical that was released that you know is making people kill themselves. And she has this line where she's like,
"It makes you kill yourself just when you thought there couldn't be any more evil that could be invented."
Even her line read of it, like it's a bad line. The line read she gives of it, like none of it feels real. I remember Wahlberg when the train stops and he comes out and he's talking to like the conductors and all the and he's like, "What's going on here? You're not just gonna," and he like leaves space for them to interrupt him.
"Sir, you're not just gonna."
And those conductors, engineers, whatever, owe him like, "Oh, we need to report to Mark Wahlberg here. We owe this man an explanation." Like, in real life, they'd be like, off.
Yeah.
Like, sorry.
Yeah.
The train's out of service. We can't tell you much. Like, they might tell you something. They wouldn't be like
We
going
lost
in
contact
depth.
with everything. It's like, what, really? We're going to get into all that?
It wouldn't be.
The friggin' hot dog guy. Oh, we should,
Don't take my daughter's hand unless you
Yes, we should really talk about that for a second.
Well, I wrote that down as a low because it's such a shitty line. Like, you're basically begging Mark Wahlberg and Zooey Deschanel to take your child, and then once they agree to do so, don't take her hand unless you mean it. It's like, are you desperate or not? Because we can say no, and then you'll have nothing.
I got her, John.
"Don't take my daughter's hand unless you mean it."
You have no one else in this moment, John Leguizamo, to help you. You're desperate. This is like your best friend and his wife, and now that they're agreeing to help you, don't take her hand unless you're like, what's your alternative? What if they say, you know what, we don't mean it? I guess she's going to get in the car with you and die then? I mean, do you know what I mean? Like, why have such a stupid line? It's so silly. It basically gives away in that scene that you know he's not coming back.
Yeah.
And they show him looking backward, and wasn't there a freeze frame in there somewhere
no,
too?
they do.
Like,
They do
you
a
couldn't
slow.
be any more obvious what's going to happen. Like, you know what's going to happen.
They do a slow mo shot, but it's one of those shots where like it wasn't shot at the right frame rate.
The two young kids that are with them at one point, "Oh, how long you been together?" Like, the questions, the conversation they're having in those couple of minutes with Mark Wahlberg. "Well, I don't even know why we're talking about this." Like, they're just there to serve his character. These aren't even fleshed out characters, and not even just anybody. No one's a fleshed out character in this movie.
Those two kids, I want to talk about that scene is one of the most insane scenes in the entire movie, where they end up at this house in the middle of nowhere and it's all boarded up and they're trying to get into the house, and then they realize that there are people in the house, and Mark Wahlberg, he's trying to coerce them to give them some food. He's like, we're here. We got this little girl. We're just trying to get her some food. Can you please help us? And they're like, "Get out of here. There's bad air out there." And Mark Wahlberg's like, "No, there's no chemical. I'm talking normal right now." And he starts singing a song.
"One black water, keep on rolling. Mississippi moon, won't you keep on shining on me? See? We're normal."
So we're totally normal. And they're like, "Just get the out of here." And he's like, "All right, fine. It's not worth it." And then the kids are like, "You, open the door." And they're trying to kick in the door. This door opens a crack and a shotgun comes out, and center mass just blows this kid away.
Right.
And then you see the second kid, another shotgun kind of slowly creeps out of the window, and it's this slow-mo shot of Mark Wahlberg being like,
Yeah.
and this kid just gets domed.
Yeah.
And then Mark Wahlberg is hanging over his body, being like, "This nightmare's gonna end soon, I promise."
It's like, who are you talking to? His
like,
dead body?
what
Not
is-
for him.
It really is.
I mean,
one of-
other than being dead. I mean, I guess in that respect it's over soon, but like, you're not saving him.
and this is
beyond saving.
This plays into the idea of like, you know, this is like the mass panic, the idea of like human beings, like when shit hits the fan, we're not even there for each other. It's just so heavy-handed in its approach that, you know, a scene where two like high school aged kids or younger get killed is one of the funniest scenes in the movie. And like that, I don't if Shyamalan's retroactive response to this is, well, I meant for it to be a B movie, I meant for it to be a farce, it's like, what a weird way to approach trying to tell this story. Is to have these two high school kids getting killed be the funniest scene in the movie. I just, real quick, I feel like we got to talk about the hot dog guy, because again, I was starting to say, like, they leave that diner, they end up with this like kind of hippie couple. They're going back to their house to like get supplies, and you see that they have like a greenhouse. This is the first character within the movie that is starting to say like, no, I think it's the plants, and the plants can communicate with each other, and then immediately undercuts it with, hey, we're picking up hot dogs. You guys like hot dogs? I love hot dogs. I don't know why people don't like hot dogs so much. They got a cool shape. They got protein. Like, you put mustard on them, you put them in your face. Awesome. They're great. And immediately Zooey Deschanel and Mark Wahlberg are looking at each other like, what the is this? And it's such an awkward beat in the movie that the one guy who actually is onto something, they immediately have to undercut him and make him seem kind of like a kook.
Right.
Here's what I'll say for highs. Very few. I think the concept of the movie...
When the movie ended, that was a high.
Yeah, that's for sure. And the movie ended pretty quickly, which was also a high, but it felt much longer than 90 minutes. I think the concept of the movie, at least on paper, is interesting. The idea of the planet mounting a defense against humanity, that idea is explored in other movies. Even like, I think about The Matrix, where Agent Smith is talking to Neo about how like you classify yourselves as mammals, but really you're a different type of organism, and basically you're a virus. That idea on its face is pretty interesting. Another high, and I already kind of mentioned it, I do think the opening scene is pretty effective. The part of that opening scene with the construction site, I do think that's some pretty scary imagery. The only other high I have for this movie is the Mrs. Jones sequence. The old lady that they find in that house, like her first line is, "You eyeing my lemon drink?" We already have these characters who have been behaving so strangely throughout the entire movie, to now get to this old lady who, she's got all this food out on the table. The little girl goes to grab a cookie and she smacks her in the hand, and it's like, I guess I should offer you dinner. I guess the kind thing for me to do is let you sleep here tonight. And then her reaction when she's like, sees Mark Wahlberg, she's like, you gonna murder me in my sleep?
Right. It was like, what? No. Yeah.
This is the humor in the movie that I begin to accept. But maybe it's because we're in the last act and it's coming in for a landing, and
there's no way that it was ever meant to be taken seriously by this point.
It's the one time where the unintended comedy is welcome, where it's finally like, okay, we're not seeing high school kids get blown away by a shotgun and, people feeding themselves to lions. It's like, it's just this wacky old woman with like a fucked up doll on her bed, and like just saying the strangest things ever and the most stilted, strange behavior. That little sequence in the movie kind of rejuvenates it, momentarily.
Doesn't make the movie good or better or anything.
Not,
it's just
what?
At that point, you've accepted the fact that it's just goofy. So you're like,
They're here at this location. They think that they're going to be safe because there's literally nobody around. And after everything is escalated with her at this point, they see her, Mark Wahlberg sees her out alone in the garden, and she starts doing that thing where she freezes and starts walking backwards, and you realize, oh, now we're down to the wind can literally affect one person now. And ultimately where the movie ends is now he's hiding in this one room. Zooey Deschanel and the little girl are in that little barn, essentially having this conversation. And then finally Mark Wahlberg says, at this point, I just want to be with you. I don't care what's going to happen. And he walks out into the field with the wind whipping around, and she walks out, and then nothing happens.
Right.
And they basically...
Oh, it must be over now.
They deduce like, oh, it just ended. Like,
right.
And like,
how convenient.
Like a wet fart.
Please take them out.
And then you
actually, neurotoxins, can you take those two out? Because they've been annoying me this whole movie.
Insufferable. So 3 months later, now it's like she's pregnant, and they've adopted the little girl. They're taking care of Jess, the John Leguizamo's daughter character. They're doing all the news footage, and basically that's where the movie's kind of wrapping up and telling you what it was. And there's some scientist or wherever who's on the news who's saying like, I think this was really just a warning. This was how the Earth was mounting its defense against us, and it was showing us what it was capable of being able to do, and we need to reconsider what we're doing. And the guy who's interviewing was like, well, yeah, but if that's really the case, why would it only happen in this one section of the country? Why would it only be in the Northeast of the United States? I could maybe get on board with you, but like, why did it only happen here? And then the movie ends with it's in Paris, and now you're seeing that the event is happening there. The question that makes me laugh is, were the plants and the trees like watching the news? I guess we need to go tell our cousins over in Paris to like kick it up over there too. That part of it just seems
You could make the
so
argument with airwaves, radio waves, television waves, things travel through waves and they move through trees. That right there could explain how the trees would know without being directly in front of a television and be able to take in and comprehend what the news is saying to it. It can travel through airwaves, just like in Twin Peaks, like how it ends up moving through electrical currents and stuff. There's something to be said for that.
Well, Shyamalan really could have used you in the writer's room.
I would have made the movie better.
The sonic waves suddenly makes it seem like that ending scene in Paris could have been cool.
No.
On next week's episode, we will be discussing Damien Chazelle's excellent Whiplash. Very excited to get into that. See you next week, folks.
Goodbye, Ruby Tuesday.
I hear you whispering. Planning on stealing something?
No, ma'am, we're not.
Plan on murdering me in my sleep?
What? No. I'd be scientific, douchebag.